been saying that to you.
Let's start by talking about the backstory for this project. First, Nathan, when you first came to LA, I read that a stranger put a curse on you. Can you tell us about that?
Well, yeah, I mean, this is sort of, when Benny and I met first, we were just we weren't intending to like make a show or anything. I was just telling him about my experiences moving to LA, and it's a little bit of an odd city, but when I first moved from Canada, I went to get like a cell phone at the store, because you need the systems don't translate, the cellular systems.
Okay.
But,
Is it like a CMDA? What is it?
Benny?
CDMA?
different networks.
GSM, right?
And so, yeah, I was in Westwood, I went to get it, and as I was walking to the store, this woman came up to me and asked for money, and I didn't have any, so I was like, sorry, I don't have, and she said, I curse you. And then I was like, okay. And I went to the cell phone store and I got my phone, but the whole time I was there, I just kept like thinking about, and I don't believe in, this stuff, but I just couldn't get it out of my head. And then I went to, after I went to an ATM and I took out $20 and I went back to her because it was bugging me. And then I said to her, is the curse gone? And she smiled and said yes. And so I was telling Benny about that, how it's just so weird that someone can like say this thing to you and like what that does to your head.
See, and it was, to me, I was just like, well, what if she wasn't there?
Yeah.
Then what would you do? Because then your life is ruined. Potentially. Anything that happens, you would have no way of actually knowing for a fact if it was because of her or not. So.
Well,
And
maybe
thus,
you could, yeah.
thus began the curse.
Well, we started sort of riffing on that, and a lot of the ideas, if you watch the show, that you see in it sort of came out of this thing.
And
And the woman looks sort of like you, and that's why we wanted to.
Benny,
It was me. It was me.
It was you?
You just didn't know me at the
Was the
time.
curse actually?
Well, we'll find out.
Benny, I understand that while you guys were talking, you and Nathan used an HGTV tagline that really piqued your interest. Can you tell us about that?
Yes, this was well after we had been kind of talking, but it was just like we had already established HGTV as our place of interest. And I was watching a bunch on the plane, and it was just kind of one of those interstitial, kind of like fun, upbeat little montages, and in it said, if you don't like your neighborhood, change it. And I was just like, huh? Like, what's going on here? And it opened up another kind of door that I didn't know was there in that whole section of television.
And this show is obviously kind of hard to summarize. Emma, when you first spoke to Nathan and Benny about the project, how did they explain it to you, and what interested you about that explanation?
We have alternate memories of how this happened. However, Nathan has now texted me the receipts, which do sort of lean to I was wrong. I didn't know anything about it, but apparently there had been a description of this online, and there was a pilot already written, and I believed that none of that existed, and he asked me if I would ever be interested in doing a show with Benny and him, and I said, yes, it sounds amazing, I'm in, basically, kind of jokingly, because I didn't know anything about it, and he was
This
like,
was
oh.
over text, by the way.
This was over text, which he has now texted it to me. It was from like 4 years ago or something. So then I was like, then they called me and they thought I already knew all about it. And I didn't. And so Benny was wandering around like an apple orchard with his kids, and Nathan was like, oh, you don't know anything about it? I thought you had already read all about it.
Well, the reason I was
Because she
wondering.
texted, I'm in.
Yes, yeah, so that's the reason why
And I
I
called
Okay,
Benny, I was
so
like,
let's
I
call
guess
this
she
one
knows about it.
So I took the phone call while like apple picking, wearing my son, like walking around, and then we found out that she knew nothing. And then Nathan and I had to proceed to pitch her the entire season of the show.
Yeah, so it went on for a while, and I was kind of like, oh, I don't know, maybe I should read it. And you're like, we thought you kind of already had or something. Anyway, the brass tacks of what they told me were what you just heard, that backstory of, you know, the cursed element and HGTV. And that was kind of it. And then they had a pilot, and the full show hadn't been written yet, and so. And I think the initial pilot was pretty similar, but Whitney was a bit different at the beginning. At the beginning, Whitney was sort of conceived to be this very kind of spiritual character who was very sort of, what would you call her? Like, she was sort of like whimsical and really believed that the curse could exist, and it was very, it's kind of like a yogi.
Yeah, I mean, there's a little bit, yeah, I mean, Emma brought a lot to the kid, because we kind of like read through everything and discussed it and did like these rewrites, and I think Emma's, what I said to Benny was, I was like, because I knew Emma in real life a little, and I said, she's very funny,
I
she's,
heard you said I was the funniest person that you had ever met.
well, you have to say it in the
Funniest person you'd ever met.
movie. You know, I did say,
What he did say was, she's a lot funnier than a lot of people actually know. That was the truth.
I see.
That's not as good.
It was
I was like, you see her in some of these movies, and she's pretty funny. But in real life, I was like, I think she might be funnier than some of these. I don't, not specific. I mean, you're very funny in the movies.
Okay, all right. I was joking.
I mean, what do you prefer?
We
To be funnier in the
Let's just
projects or
move
real
on.
life?
Anyway, so we changed a bit. As the
You guys have some
process.
more things too.
We meet your character as previously established in episode 2, and like your character, Cara, you are an artist and an actor and a poet and a musician. How did you come to be involved with this project?
Instagram, actually.
Say more about that.
Yeah, I got like a message on Instagram with a casting agent, and they were just like, "Can you audition for this?" And I was like, "Sure, absolutely." And so I just like submitted like a thing, not thinking I was ever gonna get it. And I was like, "Okay, whatever, here it is." I did the thing, and then pretty soon I was like in a room with you guys.
a lot. We did a lot.
Yeah. And and we just did a series of auditions, and
What did they tell you about the character and sort of what intrigued you about it?
she was just a really cool like native artist, and I thought that was like so like being native, like her character is so progressive, and it's such a simple like thing, like oh like she's an artist, she's native, but like that's not actually being shown in any kind of TV show or movie.
True.
So I was like, whoa, this is awesome. I want to do this.
Yeah.
So